Captain Lee Dongwu stood at the window of the human space station, watching the alien ships arrive. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Some looked like giant metal sharks. Others were shaped like crystals that sparkled in the starlight. One ship was so big it blocked out the stars behind it. "They really want to show off," said Dr. Park Hae-jin as she walked up beside him. She was carrying a small tablet and had grease stains on her white lab coat. "Look at the size of those things." Lee nodded. "Big doesn't always mean better." "Tell that to them," Park said with a smile. 3 weeks ago, the message had arrived. It came from something called the Galactic Council. The message was simple but exciting. Humans were invited to join the annual Planetary Demolition Championship. It was a contest where different alien races showed off their biggest weapons. They would test these weapons on dead planets that nobody used anymore. Commander Kim Tae-ho had read the message to the entire human fleet command. "They want to see what we can do," he had said. "They think it will be fun to watch the new kids try to play with the big boys." The human officers had looked at each other. Some were worried. Others were excited. A few were angry that the aliens seemed to think humans were weak. Now the day had come. The alien ships filled the space around the test zone. Lee could see hundreds of different shapes and sizes. Some aliens flew in ships that looked like living creatures. Others used ships made of pure energy that glowed like small suns. "Captain Lee, please report to the main deck," came a voice over the radio. Lee walked through the human station. It was small compared to the alien ships, but it was home. Human crew members were working at their stations. Everyone looked nervous, but ready. On the main deck, Commander Kim was talking to a group of alien visitors. Lee had never seen aliens up close before. They were strange but interesting. The first alien was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shine. This was Admiral Corinth from the Vextar Empire. He had 4 arms and eyes that were completely black. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music, but cold music. "So these are the humans," Admiral Corinth said, looking down at the human officers. "How cute. They look just like the pictures in our files." Next to him stood another alien. This one was shorter and had gray skin covered in small scales. Her name was Ilana, and she was from the Zeph Council. She had a large head and small, bright green eyes that never seemed to blink. "We are happy you could join us," Ilana said. Her voice was soft, but somehow felt dangerous. "We have heard interesting things about your species." "What kind of things?" asked Commander Kim. "Oh, you know," said Admiral Corinth with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "How you fight wars with such simple weapons. How you still use chemical explosives and metal bullets." "Very old-fashioned." Dr. Park stepped forward. She was smaller than the aliens, but she did not seem afraid. "Simple can be good," she said. "Simple things often work when complicated things break." Admiral Corinth laughed again. "We shall see, little human. We shall see." Ilana pulled out a device that looked like a crystal ball. Images appeared in the air above it. The first image showed a planet being hit by a massive beam of light. The planet cracked in half like an egg. "This is from last year's contest," she said. "The Draken Empire won with their plasma cannon. It can cut through a planet's core in minutes." The next image showed another planet surrounded by strange, glowing bombs. When the bombs exploded, the planet seemed to fold in on itself until it became a tiny point of light, then disappeared completely. The Helix Federation came in second. Ilana continued. "Their gravity bombs can make a planet collapse into nothing. Very impressive." More images followed. Planets being melted by acid rain that fell from space. Worlds frozen solid in seconds by weapons that stole all their heat. One planet was turned into glass by something called a crystal virus. "And what will humans bring to our little competition?" asked Admiral Corinth. He sounded amused, like he was talking to children. Commander Kim smiled. It was not a friendly smile, but it was not angry either. It was the kind of smile that made people pay attention. "We will bring something special," Kim said. "I'm sure you will," said Admiral Corinth. "Perhaps some of your famous nuclear bombs. We have heard they can destroy whole cities." How exciting. Several other aliens had gathered around to listen. They were all different shapes and sizes, but they all had the same look on their faces. They thought this would be funny. They expected the humans to embarrass themselves. Dr. Park looked at Captain Lee. Lee nodded slightly. Actually, Park said, we were thinking of something a bit different. Oh? Said Ilana, her green eyes getting brighter. What did you have in mind? We call it efficiency, said Park. The aliens looked confused. Admiral Corinth's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. Efficiency is not a weapon, he said, isn't it? Asked Commander Kim. Captain Lee stepped forward. We have studied your contest rules. We can use any weapon we want, as long as it can destroy a planet. Is that correct? Yes, said Ilana. Complete planetary destruction. That is the requirement. And we can choose our own target planet from the approved list? Of course, though I should warn you, some planets are harder to destroy than others. The rocky worlds require more power. The gas giants need special techniques. You should probably pick something easy for your first time. Commander Kim's smile got wider. We'll take the rocky planet in the Karo system, the one with the high metal content. Admiral Corinth's black eyes seemed to grow larger. That planet? Are you sure? It has a very dense core. Even our plasma cannons need several hours to crack it properly. We're sure, said Kim. Very well, said Ilana. She made some notes on a device that looked like liquid metal. When would you like to schedule your demonstration? Tomorrow is fine, said Commander Kim. The aliens looked at each other. Admiral Corinth made a sound that might have been laughter. Tomorrow? But don't you need time to prepare? To bring your, weapons into position? The Draken Empire spent 3 months setting up their plasma cannon array. We're ready now, said Dr. Park. How wonderfully confident, said Admiral Corinth. Very well. Tomorrow it is. This should be quite entertaining. As the aliens left to return to their ships, Captain Lee heard them talking among themselves. They were speaking in their own languages, but the translation devices picked up most of it. Poor little humans, one was saying. They have no idea what they're getting into. Should we tell them how hard that planet will be to crack? Asked another. No, let them learn, came the reply. It will teach them some respect. After the aliens were gone, Commander Kim, Captain Lee, and Dr. Park stood alone on the main deck. Think they suspect anything? Asked Lee. Not a chance, said Park. They think we're going to show up with some big, noisy rocket and make a small dent in their test planet. Good, said Kim. Let them think that. The surprise will be more fun. Dr. Park pulled a small metal sphere from her pocket. It was about the size of a baseball and didn't look like much. It was smooth and gray with no buttons or lights or anything that looked dangerous. Hard to believe something so small can do what it does, said Captain Lee. That's the point, said Park. They're expecting big. They're expecting loud. They're expecting us to try to match their massive weapons with massive weapons of our own. Instead, we're going to show them that sometimes the best way to kill a giant is not with a bigger sword, said Commander Kim, but with a tiny blade in exactly the right spot, finished Captain Lee. The 3 humans looked out at the alien fleet. Tomorrow, everything would change. The aliens thought they were about to watch a comedy. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had survived and thrived on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. They were about to learn that when humans couldn't build bigger, they built smarter. And smart, as the galaxy was about to discover, was much more dangerous than big. The next morning, space around the test zone was full of alien ships. Captain Lee Dongwu had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. Some aliens were huge, bigger than humans. Others were tiny and floated in special suits, filled with gas. A few looked like they were made of living metal that moved and changed shape. All of them had come to watch the weapon demonstrations. Look at them all, said Engineer Choi Min-ho, pressing his face against the window. He was young, barely 25, but one of the smartest people on the human team. They really think this is going to be a show. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon So-ra stood nearby, checking her tablet. She was in charge of making sure everything went according to plan. Let them think that, she said. The bigger the audience, the better our message will be received. Dr. Park Hee-jin walked onto the observation deck, carrying a small metal case. Inside the case, wrapped in soft foam, was the device they had brought. It looked even smaller now, surrounded by all the alien technology outside. Is that it? Asked a voice behind them. They turned to see an alien they hadn't met before. It was about the size of a human but covered in thick brown fur. It had 6 legs and a long tail that moved like a snake. Its name tag said, Vorth, and it was from something called the Timber Collective. That's our weapon, yes, said Dr. Park. Vorth made a sound that was probably laughter. It sounded like a dog barking. That tiny thing? Are you joking? We don't joke about weapons, said Colonel Yoon. But it's so small, Vorth said, looking closer at the device through the case's clear top. How much explosive do you have in there? A few kilograms? That won't even make a dent in a planet. Dr. Park smiled. It's not explosive. Not explosive? Vorth's tail stopped moving. Then what is it? It's a key, said Dr. Park. A key? A key to what? You'll see. Vorth shook his furry head and walked away, muttering in his own language. The translation device caught some of it. Crazy humans. Think they're so smart. Going to embarrass themselves. Through the big windows, they could see the alien weapons being prepared. The Draken Empire had brought 3 massive ships that connected together to form one giant plasma cannon. It was so big that it had its own gravity field. Small asteroids were being pulled toward it. The Helix Federation had set up a ring of black spheres around their test area. Each sphere was the size of a building. Energy crackled between them like lightning. The air itself seemed to bend around them. Other species had brought weapons that defied description. The Christek hive had something that looked like a living mountain made of purple crystal. The Void Seekers had a weapon that seemed to eat light itself, creating a patch of absolute darkness in space. Impressive, said a new voice. Dr. Nam Ji-woo had joined them on the observation deck. He was the oldest member of the human team, with gray hair and kind eyes. But his mind was sharper than any computer. He had spent his whole life studying the deepest secrets of physics. Which one? Asked Captain Lee. All of them, said Dr. Nam. Each weapon represents thousands of years of development. Entire civilizations have worked to build these things. And yet, said Dr. Park, patting the case with their device, I bet our little friend here could take apart any of those planets faster than their big guns. Engineer Choi looked confused. How is that possible? Our device doesn't have any massive power source. It doesn't shoot energy beams or create black holes. Dr. Nam sat down in a chair and gestured for the others to gather around. Let me tell you a story, he said. A long time ago, there was a man who wanted to move a huge boulder. He tried pushing it with his hands, but it wouldn't budge. He got 10 men to help him push. Still nothing. He got 100 men. Still nothing. So, what did he do? Asked Choi. He got a small lever and a fulcrum. With just a little pressure in the right spot, he moved the boulder easily. Captain Lee nodded. You're talking about leverage. Exactly. The other species think about brute force. How much energy can we put into destroying a planet? How big? Can we make our weapons? How much power can we generate? But that's not how humans think, said Colonel Yoon. No, said Dr. Nam. Humans ask different questions. We ask, what makes a planet hold together? What happens if we stop those forces from working? What if we don't fight the planet's strength but turn it against itself? Through the window, they could see Admiral Corinth's ship approaching. A message came over the communication system. Attention all participants. The demonstration will begin in 1 hour. Each species will have 30 minutes to show their weapons capabilities. Humans have requested to go last. Choi looked nervous. Why did we ask to go last? Dr. Park grinned. Because after everyone sees what we can do, they're going to want to talk. A lot. The first demonstration began. The Dracon Empire's plasma cannon charged up with a sound like thunder that could be heard even in space. 3 massive energy beams shot out and hit the first test planet. The planet's surface began to glow red, then white, then became too bright to look at directly. took 47 minutes for the planet to completely melt. When it was over, there was nothing left but a cloud of glowing gas and some chunks of metal floating in space. The alien audience cheered. Some species made sounds like singing. Others flashed lights or changed colors. "Impressive," said Captain Lee. "Wasteful," said Dr. Park. The Helix Federation went next. Their gravity bombs created a field that made the second test planet start spinning faster and faster. Then the planet began to stretch, like clay being pulled apart. Finally, it tore itself apart from the inside. The whole process took 23 minutes. More cheering from the audience. One by one, the other species showed off their weapons. Planets were frozen solid, dissolved in acid, turned into crystal, or simply erased from existence. Each demonstration was more spectacular than the last. The alien audience was having a great time. They cheered and made bets on which weapon was most impressive. Some aliens were taking pictures. Others were recording videos to show their friends back home. Finally, it was humanity's turn. The human ships moved toward the test planet in the Cairo system. It was a rocky world, about the same size as Earth, but with no atmosphere and no life. Its surface was covered in metals and heavy elements that made it very dense and hard. Admiral Corinth's voice came over the communication system. "Attention, humans. You have selected one of the most difficult planets to destroy. Its dense core will require significant energy to crack. Are you sure you don't want to choose an easier target?" Commander Kim's voice replied. "We're sure. Thank you. Very well. You have 30 minutes. Begin when ready." Dr. Park opened the metal case and carefully lifted out their device. It was so simple compared to everything they had seen today. No glowing lights, no energy fields, no massive size. "Are you sure this will work?" whispered Choi. Dr. Nam patted the young engineer on the shoulder. "My boy, this device is based on principles that these aliens haven't even discovered yet. They're still thinking about how to break things. We've learned how to convince things to break themselves." A small drone launched from the human ship, carrying the device toward the planet. The alien audience watched with interest. Some were making jokes about how small the human weapon was. "Look at that tiny thing," Vorth was saying to other aliens. "I bet it bounces right off the planet's surface." "Maybe it's a scanning device," suggested another alien. "Maybe they're going to study the planet before they bring out their real weapon." The drone landed softly on the planet's surface and deployed the device. The small metal sphere sat there, looking lonely and harmless on the empty world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device began to emit a soft, steady pulse. It wasn't visible light or energy beams, it was something else entirely. The alien audience began to get restless. Where was the explosion? Where were the energy beams? Where was the spectacular destruction they had come to see? Admiral Corinth's voice crackled over the communication system. "Humans, is there a malfunction with your weapon? We're not detecting any significant energy output." Commander Kim's reply was calm. "No malfunction. Please continue observing." Dr. Park looked at her tablet, watching the readings from sensors placed around the test planet. "Everything is going perfectly," she said softly. "How long?" asked Captain Lee. 4 hours, 17 minutes and 32 seconds, replied Dr. Park. "Just like we calculated." The alien audience was getting bored. Some ships were starting to leave. Others were making jokes about human technology, but Dr. Nam was watching his instruments with growing excitement. "It's starting," he whispered. Deep inside the planet, in places no one could see, something was beginning to change. The device wasn't attacking the planet. It was talking to it. And the planet was starting to listen. For the first hour, nothing seemed to happen. The small human device sat on the planet's surface, pulsing quietly. Many aliens had stopped watching. Some were playing games on their ships. Others were eating or talking about other things. "This is boring," said Vorth to a group of aliens floating nearby. "When are the humans going to bring out their real weapon?" Admiral Corinth was getting impatient too. His forearms were moving in ways that showed he was annoyed. "Perhaps we should give them more time to prepare," he said to his officers. Clearly, they are not ready. But on the human ship, Sergeant Bae Jun-seok was watching his instruments very carefully. He was the best sensor operator in the human fleet. His job was to watch for any changes in the test planet. Captain Lee, Bae said quietly, I'm getting some strange readings. Captain Lee walked over to Bae's station. What kind of readings? Seismic activity. Very small at first, but it's growing, and it's not random. It's following a pattern. Doctor? Park looked up from her tablet. Her eyes were bright with excitement. What kind of pattern? It's like someone is playing music inside the planet. The vibrations are hitting specific points in a specific order. Dr. Park smiled. It's working. On the alien observation ships, a few sensors were starting to pick up the same readings. But most aliens weren't paying attention. They were too busy laughing about the humans' failed weapon. Look at them, said an alien engineer named Klex. He had blue skin and too many eyes. They're still watching their little device like it's going to do something amazing. But Klex was looking at his own instruments while he talked. Suddenly, his many eyes went wide. Wait. Something is happening. The seismic readings were getting stronger. What had started as tiny vibrations was now becoming real earthquakes. But these weren't normal earthquakes. They were happening in a pattern that made no sense. The earthquakes are moving, said Klex, his voice getting higher. They're moving. From the North Pole to the South Pole, then back again, but faster each time. Other aliens began to notice. Ships that had been leaving came back to watch. The joking and laughing stopped. Admiral Corinth contacted the human ship. What exactly is your device doing down there? Commander Kim's voice was calm. It's having a conversation. A conversation? With whom? With the planet. The aliens didn't understand. How could anyone have a conversation with a planet? Planets were just rock and metal. They weren't alive. But Dr. Nam Ji-woo knew better. He had spent years studying something that most aliens had never thought about. Every planet had what he called a voice, a unique combination of frequencies that came from its size, its metal content, its magnetic field, and the way it spun. You see, Dr. Nam explained to the other humans, every planet is like a giant musical instrument. It has natural frequencies that it resonates with. Most species try to destroy planets by hitting them harder than they can resist. But we're not hitting it at all, said Engineer Choi. Exactly, we're singing to it. We're finding its natural frequency, and then making it stronger and stronger until the planet can't hold itself together anymore. On the planet's surface, the small device continued its work. It was sending out waves that were perfectly matched to the planet's natural resonance. These waves were spreading through the rock and metal, finding every weakness, every crack, every unstable point. The planet began to respond. The earthquakes grew stronger. Cracks appeared on the surface, forming patterns that looked almost like writing. The planet's magnetic field started to fluctuate in ways that made no scientific sense to the watching aliens. This is impossible, said Klex, staring at his readings. The energy output from that tiny device isn't nearly enough to cause these effects. That's because they're not using brute force, said another alien engineer. They're using the planet's own energy against itself. Admiral Corinth was starting to look worried. His black eyes were fixed on the planet, which was now shaking so hard that it could be seen from space. How much longer? Captain Lee asked Dr. Park. Dr. Park checked her calculations. 3 hours and 22 minutes, right on schedule. The planet's rotation was starting to change. It was spinning faster in some places and slower in others. This should have been impossible. Planets were solid objects. They couldn't twist like that, but this planet was doing exactly that. The alien audience was no longer bored. Ships were moving closer to get better sensor readings. Scientists and engineers were frantically taking notes. Military officers were making urgent calls to their home worlds. What have we done? Whispered Ilana to Admiral Corinth. What have we invited into our galaxy? The cracks on the planet's surface were getting bigger. But they weren't random cracks caused by stress or heat. They were forming geometric patterns like someone was drawing lines on the world with an invisible pen. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Park, watching the patterns form. "Look how precisely the stress fractures are following the calculated paths." The planet's core was heating up, but not from any external energy source. The device was causing the planet to generate its own heat by making its internal structure work against itself. Metals that had been stable for billions of years were suddenly becoming unstable. Rock formations that had lasted forever were suddenly remembering that they were supposed to fall down. 2 hours remaining, announced Dr. Park. By now, every alien in the area was watching. The joking had stopped completely. Some aliens were recording everything. Others were sending urgent messages to their governments. The planet was starting to change shape. It was still roughly round, but parts of it were bulging outward while other parts were sinking inward. It looked like the world was breathing, but the breaths were getting deeper and more violent each time. "The magnetic field is collapsing," reported Sergeant Bay. "The planet's core is destabilizing." "Perfectly normal," said Dr. Nam. "The device is convincing the planet's magnetic field to work against its own gravity. Eventually, the planet won't be able to decide which force is stronger." Admiral Corinth's ship moved closer to the human vessel. "You must stop this," he demanded over the communication system. "This is not natural. This is not how planets are supposed to behave." "You asked us to destroy a planet," replied Commander Kim. "That's what we're doing. But this is wrong somehow. Planets shouldn't be able to do this to themselves." "Why not?" asked Dr. Park, joining the conversation. "You've been destroying planets for thousands of years, but you've always done it from the outside. You melt them or blow them up or crush them with gravity. You never asked what the planets themselves wanted to do. Planets don't want anything. They're not alive, aren't they? They have magnetic fields, which means they have electrical activity. They have internal heat sources. They rotate and orbit and respond to gravitational forces. Maybe they're not alive the way we are, but they're definitely not just dead rocks." The planet was starting to glow, not from external heat but from its own internal energy being released in ways that had never happened before. The light wasn't the white-hot glow of melting metal. It was softer, more colorful, like the aurora lights that danced in the skies, of worlds with magnetic fields. 1 hour remaining," said Dr. Park. The planet's surface was now moving like ocean waves, but waves made of solid rock. Mountains were rising and falling in slow, hypnotic patterns. The geometric cracks were spreading and connecting, forming a web that covered the entire world. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered Klex. "It's like the planet is our dancing." And in a way it was. The human device had taught the planet a new song, and now the world was singing along. But it was a song that no planet could sing for very long. The harmony was too complex, the rhythm too intense. The planet was dancing itself to death. 30 minutes remaining, announced Dr. Park. The alien fleet had grown silent. Even the most arrogant species were beginning to understand that they were watching something that would change everything. The humans hadn't just built a new weapon. They had discovered a completely new way of thinking about planets, about physics, about the universe itself. Admiral Corinth stared at the dying world and realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare, about technology, about the balance of power in the galaxy, was about to become obsolete. The humans had not just joined the galactic community. They had just rewritten all the rules. The final 30 minutes were the most terrifying thing the aliens had ever witnessed. The planet in the Karo system was coming apart, but not like any planetary destruction they had seen before. Dr. Nam Ji-woo stood at the observation window, explaining what was happening to the silent alien observers who had gathered around the human ship. "You see," he said in his calm professor voice, "every planet has what we call a resonance signature. It's like a fingerprint made of sound and vibration. This signature comes from the planet's size, its metal content, how fast it spins, and how its magnetic field works." Fleet Admiral Rex Thalon, a massive alien with silver skin and 6 arms, floated closer to listen. He was the senior military commander for 3 different alien empires. His job was to understand threats to galactic security. What you are saying is impossible, Rex Thalon said. Planets are stable. They have been stable for billions of years. Stable, yes, said Dr. Nam, but only because nothing has ever sung to them in exactly the right way. On her tablet, Dr. Park was tracking the planet's final moments. 15 minutes, she announced. The world below was no longer recognizable as a planet. It had become something that looked like a living thing made of rock and metal. The surface moved in waves. The cracks had spread everywhere, forming patterns that were somehow beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The magnetic field is completely inverted now, reported Sergeant Bay from his sensor station. North is south, south is north, and it's flipping back and forth every few seconds. That should be killing every electronic device on that planet, said Communications Officer Lee Yunbi, monitoring the alien fleet's radio chatter. It would be, said Dr. Park, if there were any left. But our device became part of the planet's natural systems an hour ago. It's not technology anymore, it's geology. Admiral Corinth's voice crackled over the communication system. He sounded different now. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something that might have been fear. Human ship, please respond. We need to understand what you have done, Commander Kim answered. We told you. We're having a conversation with the planet. But the planet is dying. Yes. We asked it to die and it said yes. The alien fleet was buzzing with panicked communications. Ships that had arrived to watch a simple weapons demonstration were now sending urgent reports to their home governments. Dr. Nam continued his explanation to the growing crowd of alien observers. What most species don't understand is that planets want to fall apart. Gravity holds them together, but they're always fighting against that force. The rotation wants to throw them apart. The internal heat wants to expand them. The magnetic field wants to flip and change. So you convinced the planet to stop fighting? Asked an alien scientist. We convinced it to fight itself, said Dr. Tambu. We showed it how to use its own forces against each other. Gravity against rotation, heat against cold, magnetic force against its own structural integrity. 10 minutes, announced Dr. Park. The planet was glowing brighter now. The light was coming from every crack, every moving piece of the surface. It looked like the world was made of fire and lightning held together by invisible threads. The mathematics behind this are incredible, whispered Rex Thalon, studying the readings from his own sensors. The precision required to calculate these resonance frequencies. How long did it take you to develop this? Dr. Park looked up from her tablet. About 6 months. 6 months? Rex Thalon's silver skin changed color, turning pale. Our species have spent thousands of years developing our planetary weapons. Yes, but you were trying to build bigger hammers, said Dr. Park. We built a key instead. 5 minutes, she announced. The alien communications were becoming more frantic. Lee Yunbi was translating the most important messages for the human crew. The Vextar Empire is demanding we stop the demonstration immediately, she reported. The Helix Federation is asking for our technical specifications. The Draken Empire wants to open immediate trade negotiations. Already? Asked Captain Lee. More species are requesting defensive treaties, Lee continued. And something called the Outer Rim Coalition is asking if we're accepting new members. Commander Kim smiled grimly. They're starting to understand the implications. What implications? Asked Rex Thalon. Dr. Nam turned to face the alien commander. Admiral, how many planets does your empire control? 47 inhabited worlds, plus mining operations on 63 others. And how would you defend those planets against an attack? Orbital defense platforms, energy shields, patrol fleets, all of which require massive amounts of energy and thousands of crew members, said Dr. Nam. Our weapon requires 1 person, 1 small device, and 4 hours. Rex Thalon was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that everyone was thinking. How many of these devices do you have? Dr. Park's smile was not reassuring. That's classified. 2 minutes, she announced. The planet was breaking apart now, but in slow motion. Huge chunks of the world were separating and floating away, still glowing with internal light. But instead of flying apart randomly like an explosion, The pieces were moving in patterns, forming spirals and geometric shapes as they drifted into space. "It's like a flower opening," whispered one of the alien observers. "A flower made of death," said another. The human device, still sitting on what had once been the planet's surface, continued its quiet pulse. It was now riding a piece of rock, no bigger than a building, but it kept working, singing its destructive song to the scattered pieces of the world. 1 minute. The planet's core was the last thing to break apart. It had been fighting the device's influence the longest. But finally, even the dense metals at the world's heart began to listen to the human song. When the core cracked open, it released a flash of light that could be seen from other star systems. Not the violent light of an explosion, but something softer and more beautiful. It was the light of a world that had finally learned how to let go. "Time," announced Dr. Park. 4 hours and 17 minutes after the device had been activated, the planet was gone. In its place was a cloud of glowing debris arranged in perfect spiral patterns. The pieces moved slowly, following the gravitational laws, but their arrangement was so precise that it looked like art. The alien fleet was completely silent. Finally, Admiral Corinth's voice came over the communication system. "How?" he asked, simply. "Physics," replied Dr. Nam. "The same physics that has always existed. We just learned how to ask the right questions." "What questions? What does the planet want to do? What is it fighting against? What would happen if we stopped fighting the planet and started working with it instead?" Rex Thalan's ship moved closer to the human vessel. "Do you have other weapons like this?" Dr. Park checked her tablet and then looked up with that same unsettling smile. "This was our smallest one," she said. In the distance, emergency beacons were activating on alien ships as crews sent urgent messages home. The galaxy had just learned that the newest species to join their community was also potentially the most dangerous. But the humans weren't done yet. They had one more surprise to share. 3 days after the demonstration, the space around the human station looked completely different. Ships from every major empire in the galaxy had arrived. Some came with diplomats, others brought scientists, a few brought gifts. Ambassador Go, Sungmin had never been so busy in his life. His office was filled with alien representatives all wanting to talk to humans about the same thing, the weapon that had made a planet dance itself to death. "Please understand," Go was saying to a group of alien ambassadors, "we are not interested in selling weapons. That's not why we developed this technology." "Then why?" asked Ambassador Krill from the Helix Federation. She was tall and thin, with green skin that changed color when she was nervous. Right now, she was very nervous. "Exploration," said Go simply. "We wanted to understand how planets work. The weapon was just a side effect." Outside his office, President Kang Soo-jin was meeting with the most important alien leaders. The room was crowded with beings from across the galaxy, all wanting to know the same thing. What did humans want? "We want to learn," President Kang told them. "We want to explore. We want to build things and discover new science." "And the weapons?" asked Fleet Admiral Rex Thalan. "Are for defense only," said Kang, firmly. "We will never attack anyone who doesn't attack us first." Admiral Corinth, who had lost his command after the demonstration, sat quietly in the corner. His empire had blamed him for allowing the humans to embarrass the galaxy. Now he was seeking asylum with the species he had once mocked. "What will you do with me?" he asked President Kang. "Give you a job if you want one," said Kang. "We need advisors who understand galactic politics, people who can help us avoid making enemies." Corinth's 4 arms moved in surprise. "You would trust me? After how I treated you?" "You learned," said Kang. "That's what matters." In her laboratory, Dr. Park Hye-jin was working on something new. The metal case that had held their planet killer now sat empty on her desk. But she wasn't building another weapon. The device on her workbench looked similar to the first one, but the readings on her computer showed it did something completely different. Engineer Choi Min-ho walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Still working on the terraform project?" "Almost finished," said Park, accepting the coffee gratefully. This one should be able to turn a dead rock into a garden world in about the same time it took us to destroy that planet. 4 hours and 17 minutes, give or take, said Park with a grin. Turns out that if you can convince a planet to fall apart, you can also convince it to put itself together in new and interesting ways. Choi nearly dropped his coffee. You're serious? We can create habitable planets that fast? Not habitable. For us necessarily. But we can set up the basic conditions. Atmosphere, water cycle, magnetic field, stable geology. After that, it just takes time for life to do its thing. The aliens are going to lose their minds when they find out about this. They already have, said Dr. Nam Ji-woo, walking into the lab. I just got back from a meeting with the Galactic Science Council. They want to offer us full membership and research partnerships with every major university in known space. What? Did you tell them? Asked Park. That we'd think about it, said Nam. But first we want to make sure they understand the rules. What rules? Human rules. No slavery, no genocide, no testing weapons on inhabited planets, no claiming ownership of entire star systems. Nam sat down and pulled out his own tablet. And no more treating other species like they're less important just because they're new or different. The door opened and Captain Lee Dong-woo walked in. You're going to want to see this, he said, handing Nam a message pad. Nam read it quickly, then started laughing. What is it? Asked Park. The Vextar Empire is offering to make Earth the capital of their entire territory, Nam said, still chuckling. They want to give us control of 47 inhabited worlds. Why? Protection, said Lee. They figure if they're on our side, nobody will attack them with planet-killer weapons. Do they know we only built the one device? Asked Choi. Doctor. Park gave him a look that made him step backward. Did we only build one? I thought we did. The workshop behind the main lab has been running 3 shifts for the past week, said Park. We now have 17 different variations of the resonance device. Some work on gas giants. Others are designed for artificial structures like space stations. A few are specialized for planets with certain types of defensive technology. Choi sat down heavily. 17? And that's just the weapons, said Dr. Nam. We've also got the terraforming devices, atmospheric processors, magnetic field generators, and something Dr. Park calls a continental reorganizer that can move land masses around like puzzle pieces. Captain Lee nodded. The aliens don't know any of this yet. They think the planet killer was our only trick. Should we tell them? Asked Choi. Eventually, said Park. But for now, let them think what they want. Fear keeps them polite. A communication alert sounded on Nam's tablet. He checked it and smiled. Speaking of polite, we just received formal invitations to join 6 different galactic alliances, 3 trade federations, and something called the Cosmic Research Initiative. Any military alliances? Asked Lee. 12, including one from the species that used to consider us primitive newcomers. The door opened again and Commander Kim Tae-ho entered with President Kang Soo-jin. They both looked tired but happy. How are the negotiations going? Asked Dr. Park. Better than expected, said Kang. It turns out that when aliens are afraid of you, they become much more reasonable about trade agreements and territorial boundaries. Any problems? Asked Captain Lee. Just one, said Commander Kim. The Outer Rim Coalition wants to hire us as mercenaries. They're offering to pay us to use our weapons against their enemies. What did you tell them? That humans don't work as mercenaries, said Kang firmly. We protect ourselves and our friends. We don't attack people for money. Dr. Nam looked up from his tablet. That might actually be more frightening to them than if we said yes. Why? Because it means we can't be bought. Mercenaries are predictable. They work for whoever pays them the most. But people who only fight for their own reasons? That's scary. Outside the station, the alien fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived daily, bringing more diplomats, more scientists, and more offers of friendship and alliance. But the humans were taking their time. They were learning about their new neighbors, studying galactic politics and carefully deciding which relationships they wanted to build. They had learned something important from their first contact with the galaxy. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is surprise people, and the best way to surprise people is to be exactly what they don't expect. The aliens had expected humans to be weak because they were new. Instead, they found a species that had learned to turn physics itself into a weapon. They had expected humans to be impressed by big, flashy displays of power. Instead, they found a species that preferred elegant solutions to brute force. They had expected humans to be grateful for the chance to join galactic civilization. Instead, they found a species that was prepared to rewrite the rules. As Dr. Park worked on her terraforming device, she thought about what the future might hold. Humans were no longer the newcomers asking to be accepted. They were the species that everyone else wanted to understand, to trade with, to learn from. It was a good feeling. But it was also a big responsibility. The galaxy was watching humanity, now, waiting to see what they would do next. Dr. Park smiled as she made the final adjustments to her device. If the aliens thought the planet killer was impressive, wait until they saw what humans could build when they put their minds to creating instead of destroying. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just excel at taking things apart. They were even better at putting things together. And that, Park thought as she activated her terraforming device for its first test, was going to change everything.